Hi, Karen Curry Parker here with your weekly Human Design Evolution Report. We have a really interesting challenge for us this week, and I'm choosing to film this week's transit report on Eld Inlet, just north of Olympia, Washington. This is an inlet that is part of the ocean. It's saltwater and it's tidal. So where I'm standing right now, the tide is out. I'm on the beach. If you come back in a couple of hours when the tide is in, there won't be any beach here, and I'd have to be standing somewhere else to film. The reason why I wanted to film here for you guys is because the theme of this week is what I like to call grit and grace. We are being invited by the celestial weather to explore the idea of what can we control and what do we need to let go of, particularly this week as we move to new moon energy on Friday and we go deeper into the very powerful creative cycle of the year that we're in, where we're laying the groundwork, planting the seeds for what we're building for the rest of our year. There's a certain amount of power that comes from knowing what you need to let go of and knowing how to surrender. Just like the beach has to sort of give up and be in the ebb and flow of the tide, and the animals have to adjust accordingly, the clams have to adjust accordingly, we have to adjust to the ebbs and flows, the tides, the cycles of life. And when we resist the cyclical nature of our reality and we cling to the old with the understanding or the hope that if we just hold on tight enough, we'll be able to control it, and we fail to let go, we also fail to reap the reward of what comes at the other end of a cycle, and we fail to make room for what's next. How can we increase our expansion? And we don't leave room for miracles, for serendipity, for synchronicity, all those things that happen when we surrender our control. There is importance in grit. There are times when you need to endure, when you need to be clear about what you do need to hold on to. Any of you who've ever been married for a certain period of time, you know that you have years in your committed partnerships that suck, where you ask yourself, repeatedly, why did I do this to myself, right? And you also have years where when you get through to the other side of those difficult challenges in your partnerships or your commitments or even in your business, that when you get through that cycle, there's a huge payoff on the other end, a payoff that comes from the quality of commitment, the quality of work, the willingness to continue to do the work necessary to move yourself through to the next place of expansion. And there's a certain amount of grace, especially when you get to the other side of it, of, I'm so glad I stuck with this. I'm so glad I endured. So there's value in looking at what are the things that you really do need to hold on to? What are the places where perhaps you do need to assert a certain amount of control, but also what do you need to let go of? Again, going back to marriage as a metaphor, you can't control what your partner does. You can't control what happens to your certain aspects of your life, even certain aspects of your business. Things are going to happen that you don't have control over. There'll be recessions. You'll have employees that change their employment with you. You'll have people who, you have a good agreement and then the agreement changes. Life will change, but you can control your response to it. You can take control over choosing to collaborate and create in such a way that what you're building is a reflection of the heart of who you are and what you really deem to be the priorities of your heart. That's the grit part. That knowing what's worth putting your energy into, knowing what's worth building and sustaining. The grace part comes from letting go of the details, trusting that if you keep the overarching intention in place, if you are clear about what's important to you, what are you willing to commit to and endure and hold strong to, what goals do you have, if you can keep your eye on the prize, and you are open to the flow of how that unfolding of the path towards the prize happens, then you also stay in a state of grace. The challenge, I think, of being human is about finding that middle point between grit and grace. We are designed to be fully supported by a loving force that is the unfolding of the universe. And when we hold true to our right path, then the road essentially can rise up to meet you. And you don't have to figure out where it's going to go. You don't even necessarily have to have a map, although that map can be crafted from the intention of your heart, from the soul's alignment with your heart's priorities. So this week, find that space of grit and grace. Explore for yourself, where are you willing to put your energy into managing and enduring and sustaining your vision, while you also simultaneously let go of the details, let go of the need to know what's the exact next outcome, what's the exact next step. Trust that you'll need to know, you'll know what you'll need to know when you need to know it. That the unfolding itself is perfection, and that when you wake up every morning, stay attuned to the bigger vision of what you're here to do. Keep that as the sidelines of the road of your path. Just make sure you stay clear about where you're headed and what you're creating. When you can hold that space and stay in communion with the bigger purpose, the bigger meaning of who you are and your life, and just take one step at a time accordingly. Trust that from keeping in that alignment and not freaking out about the details, you'll be fine. On a different little side note, don't be surprised this week if other people treat you as if you are an imperfect version of themselves and try to control you accordingly. Let it go. Let it roll off of you. Sometimes the things that people say are a reflection of what they themselves need to be talking to themselves about in a mirror. So don't try to control anybody else. Don't panic if they try to control you. Don't take it personally. Stay tuned to your heart. Grit and grace. Have a great week.